Hello. Today I'm going to talk about Daniel Defoe and his Hymn to the Pillory. Daniel Defoe was a writer in the late 1600s, early 1700s, and he's best known for his book Robinson Crusoe, about a man stranded alone on an island. But he wrote a number of other things, including some other novels and including some political works. So he was a propagandist for a while for the Tories. And the Tories were sort of the supporters of the upper class associated with the Queen, with Queen Anne. But he didn't start out as sympathizers with them. His father was a dissenter, and Daniel Defoe ended up as a prisoner during Queen Anne's reign for punishment for what he had written, and he was sent to the pillory. And while he was in the pillory, he wrote this Hymn to the Pillory, which supposedly he had his friends distribute, selling copies of to the people who came to gawk at him while he's there. After he got out of the pillory, and after he was released from prison, he became a propagandist on the Tory side, and he was sent as a spy up to Scotland to ask the Scottish how they felt about joining with England and to try to promote the union of the two countries. So I'm going to look at the Hymn to the Pillory, and I want to talk about why this poem is so relevant today and about why there is so much in it that we should be thinking about and discussing with our children. So here I go. A Hymn to the Pillory. And a pillory is this big machine that you would put your head and your hands in. It's a big wooden frame. And you would be sort of hunched over and people could throw things at you, normally rotten fruit, possibly rocks. The legend is that after people read this hymn, they actually threw flowers at him instead, but that is probably not true. What does he say about it? He says, "Hail, hieroglyphic state machine, contrived to punish fancy in. Men that are men in thee can feel no pain, and all thy insignificance disdain." So here he's saying, he's using sexist language. Men that are men in thee can feel no pain. But the point is clear. He means that people who are, worthy of respect, that are real men, it's not going to bother them to be in this pillory. It's an insignificant thing. They can just disdain it. Contempt, that false new word for shame, is without crime an empty name. So he knows he didn't do a real crime. He wrote something, it ticked off the Queen and her people. That's why he's in trouble. So he's saying other people's contempt can't actually bother him. It's just empty. But it's also worth just stopping and thinking about the difference between contempt and shame. Is contempt something you feel mainly for other people, or that other people feel for you, whereas shame is something you feel for yourself? It's falling short on one's own standards. So there's an interesting balance here. Is he saying that people are no longer judging themselves on how they feel about themselves? And I don't know if he's going that far or not, but it's worth thinking about. So a shadow to amuse mankind, but never frights the wise or well-fixed mind. So contempt, it's just this shadow to amuse mankind. You can, if you're looking at the text, you can see it's kind of hard to read it. It looks like it says wife, not wise, because the letter they have for the S there looks like an F. But never frights the wise or well-fixed mind. Virtue defies human scorn, and scandals innocence adorn. So if you're innocent, if you're virtuous, can scorn and scandals actually tar you? Can it really cause a problem or not? And that's something that one could debate. Have good people been brought down by silly scandals? Exalted on thy stool of state, what prospect do I see of sovereign fate? So that stool of state is the platform that he's on while he's in that pillory, and he's looking out. So prospect is a view. What prospect do I see of sovereign fate? Do any of the people he's looking at actually have a sense of sovereignty? Do they have a sense of pride and ability? Or are they sort of at the mercy of everything too? How the inscrutables of providence differ from our contracted scene. Here by the heirs of the town, the fools look out and the knaves look on. So the difference between them, the people he's looking at who have come to judge him, that he is actually judging, this difference is caused by the heirs of the town. There isn't a real cause for it. It's not due to justice or, to karma or something. This is accident. This is foolishness of the town. Persons or crimes find here the same respect. Now, I want to talk about that word persons. There were people in the past who said proudly that they are no respecters of persons. And what they meant by that was that they didn't respect the hierarchy that separates people, the privilege that makes some people sort of your social superiors. So we might think, well, you should respect all people. And that wasn't what they were arguing against. They said, don't respect persons, don't respect that fake hierarchy. So persons or crimes find here the same respect. So there's this leveling he's mentioning. Social leveling. But also a lack of judgment between the crimes, between people who have done serious crimes and those who haven't. Vice does virtue oft correct. Now, we want virtue to correct vice. We want good things to correct bad, not bad things to correct virtue. But he's saying, no, this is doing the opposite. Vice does virtue oft correct the undistinguished fury of the street, which mob and malice mankind greet. No bays can the rabble draw, but dirt throw dirt without respect to merit or to law. So he's talking about a scene where things are topsy-turvy. I think of that undistinguished fury of the street. Do we see that these days in internet comment sections where people judge and criticize? We don't go to pillories. You can't go and watch somebody standing in a pillory these days, but you can see the newspaper article, and people will comment on them and criticize and say that person should be taken out and punished more. And sometimes it feels like people are throwing dirt, judging what they should not be. Sometimes the air of scandal to maintain, villains look from thy lofty loops in vain. So these lofty loops are the holes in the pillory where the person is putting their head and neck. And they're looking out. So sometimes, in order for this to be an effective punishment, in order to maintain that air of scandal, to make people judge those who are put in it, they do actually put bad people, villains, in it. But who can judge of crimes by punishment? Can you actually judge and see, hey, that person's in a pillory, so therefore that person is bad. They are worthy of your contempt. They should feel shame. And he's saying, no, you can't. Because where parties rule, and els subservient, I think that's laws, but I'm not sure. But the parties are making the decisions. Justice with change of interest learns to bow, and what was merit once is murther now. Actions receive their tincture from the times, and as they change are virtues made of crimes. I love those lines. So tincture, that's like the coloring. Actions receive their coloring from the times. Something that is a virtue at one point is now a vice. And I can think of this. I can think of things that were virtues at one point that are no longer virtues, that are crimes. And we can think of things that were tolerated that are crimes now. So, I mean, some of this, it's good. We've made things into crimes. Sexual harassment used to be more common. And now we've said, no, wait, that behavior is wrong. Some ways in which people attempted to discipline their children are now crimes. It used to be seen as virtuous. Now we say, no, wait, that's abuse. No, changing rules can be good things. We can improve our standards, but it can also be bad things where parties rule. And I think now of Alberta, Canada, because I came from there originally. And recently, in one of the past elections, a number of issues came forward. There was a animal rights protest that went into a barn, and there was a different incident where a man was shot while he was on somebody else's property, and it ended up not being a crime, but the person who was shot ended up suing the other person. And after the election, the political party actually went and they changed those laws. So they now have a law that just going into a barn can be considered endangering the animals. And this is a law they wrote to try to prevent animal protesters. And they changed the other law as well for the other situation. And how you feel on this law, well, regardless of what you might feel on it, there's this question of, should we be changing laws for political purposes because of something coming up during an election, for popularity issues? It's interesting where parties rule, and what laws do people pass or do parties promise to pass in order to get elected? And is this a good way of figuring out new laws? Thou art the state trap of the law, but neither can keep knaves nor honest men in awe. So he's talking about the pillory. The pillory is the state trap of the law, but it can't keep either knaves, these are the ruffians or the scoundrels, nor honest men in awe. It doesn't work for either. These, that is the knaves, are too hardened in offense. They don't care what people think of them. And those, the honest men, they are upheld by their own innocence. So if we go up a little bit to that line, who can judge of criminals by punishment? I think of a newspaper article I saw recently that it was a very poorly written article, but it was talking about women fearing abuse while in prisons. And in the comments section, people were saying, oh, but if you're in prison, you deserve that. You deserve whatever abuse happens. And I'm thinking, no, people can be in prison for all sorts of different things. But, I mean, that's not how people see it. So this is a very relevant poem. There's lots of good conversations that could be had from it. Thank you for watching this video. I'm just sort of experimenting with this whole video blogging thing. If you are enjoying the videos, please leave a comment or a Facebook reaction or share it so you offer encouragement that way for me doing more. Thanks. Bye.